Today's video is going to go over my version of the Budget Int Stacker with Mage Blood. Wait, I just said something that is a complete paradox. There's no such thing as a Budget Mage Blood build. But I'm going to go over the choices I made for this current character and how you can adopt this character without the Mage Blood and what choices you would need to make. I do believe number one problem with Int Stackers is having no physical mitigation. A lot of times if you have zero physical mitigation with zero evasion, you go do a map, you go do a simulacrum, you'll get zerged by mobs and you'll get instantly killed. Having only 6.4k ES with no physical mitigation is the number one killer of Int Stackers around the world. And it's quite a sad sight to see because I do believe that it is fixable by sacrificing some damage and it actually ends up making the character more playable. However, if you want a tooltip warrior and you want to be number one on PoE Ninja with KB damage or something, then by all means you could choose not to do this variant, and it really depends on what content you're doing. But boy oh boy, is KB such a beautiful skill. Look at this. Yeah, even though I know this skill is not that good compared to Lightning Strike in terms of potential with the amount of currency you spend, this has been a really fun experience for me. I haven't really ever tried to make a cheaper Int Stacker or even played an Int Stacker really at the high end of currency gear. I've always been of the belief that Int Stacker is pretty garbage at low budget, and even at the highest of the high ceilings, it is not worth it compared to other builds. And I do believe that Lightning Strike, Berserker, or Raider, or even like Forbidden Right, Self-Cast is going to be a better build. But at this point in the league, it's about aesthetics. It's not so much about having the best possible build to do all content. And I do believe there is some innovation to be had in Int Stackers, mainly in how you solve the defense issue and what you need to do. And I actually have cleared up to a wave 30 Simulacrum on this character. I didn't kill this 30 Simulacrum because I think the DPS is just too low to kill the bosses, but I do believe if I tried it enough, I would be able to kill it on this character, purely because Evasion is overpowered and it is actually just insane in what's it called, Simulacrum. Let's just say I feel tankier against Kosis and Omniphobia on this character than I did on my Lightning Strike Berserker, and the Lightning Strike Berserker was relatively tanky, but Evasion is just that broken. So I'm going to go over the gear I have, the tree I'm using, what skill gems, and then potential upgrades I'll be making for this character, and I'll showcase like some mapping footage or some Awakener. This character is capable of doing everything in the game as long as you get rid of wave 30 Simulacrum from your list, and it's actually pretty easy to kill like Awakener and Maven and all that sort of stuff. No, before I got this character started, I didn't want to use like the most expensive gear in the world, but I wanted to get a more like a regular setup that someone who first started the character would be. So I tried not to get any piece of gear that was over like 30, 20x or 10x or 15x or so. I tried to get relatively affordable pieces. Now the elephant in the room is this fucking belt on my waist slot, right? And this belt is quite expensive. There's no way to really go around it. But the fact of the matter is, the defenses of this character revolves around evasion. And you can see here, if we turn on everything, we have 12% armor, which is not too great, not too bad. But you could definitely run a Granite Flask if you really wanted to. But the main thing is we have 93-95% chance to evade. And this is done through Shaper's Touch, right? So Shaper's Touch, you have percent evasion rating per 10 intelligence. So if you have like say 1,558 int, which is how much I have, you would have around what, like, so that would be 150 times 2, so around 300% increased evasion rating. And Shaper's Touch also solves your accuracy rating issue by giving you 600% 600 accuracy rating for free nearly. Oh wait, no, it's 75 700. It's like 2,000 plus accuracy rating, so you see we're at 100%. This actually means we don't even need to really run precision or worry about accuracy at all. Now, 93% evasion is pretty much, you're not going to die against physical attacks. So pretty much anything that, so if you're standing in Simulacrum, you get hit by a bunch of fizz hits, as long as you don't get one-shotted, So once you get the ES barrier up to like 8k, 9k, you will not die because you'll get hit and then you'll evade, and then the Ghost Shroud will eventually immediately bring you back up. So Ghost Shroud is you cannot recover energy shield above evasion rating, but we have 62,000 evasion rating. And then every 2 seconds gain a Ghost Shroud up to a maximum of 3, and then when hit, lose a Ghost Shroud to recover energy shield equal to 3% of your evasion rating. So this is kind of like Aegis Aurora in a weird way. So we are able to recover what, like, so 600 is 1%, and then 3% of that is 1800. So we immediately recover 1800 ES when we get hit, which is a pretty good benefit. So you can see here, we're able to take care of our fizz reduction and and evasion just from like physical hits and attacks. But the main thing that we're worried about is going to be spells. So fizz spells is going to be an issue without some more armor in the build. And resists are always going to be somewhat enough to take care of your EHP. The reason being is that later on you'll have a pretty high ES pool around like 9k, 10k. And this means that you will have enough ES buffer to survive because you have 75 resist. So like elemental is not really ever the huge problem of Int Stackers, and it is always like a problem more for like fizz attacks and fizz spells. So I believe that evasion by itself can solve the defenses of the Int Stacker. And you might be wondering, oh, you have a mage blood on, but you could literally take off every single one of these flasks, right? And you will still have around 84% chance to evade. And I've actually done simulacrums trying out the mage blood with no flask on. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing it with no flask on? Is the fact that I've been too lazy to fix the resist. I am running like 36% additional resist. But what you could end up doing is, even though we don't have the resist right now, Int Stackers do get a lot of resist on their gear, whether through 28% all res here. You can also get resist on your 2 ring slots, and even like you can also scourge this thing to get resist. But resist you can also fix through jewels, which is what a lot of Int Stackers do. You can get 10 all res as one of the suffixes. And then like if you don't have a mage blood, you can also replace it with like a int belt with some resist on top like this. So there are options to mage blood, and in reality the belt with synthesize with %int is a lot more damage because mage blood actually does not have any intelligence flat or % value on top. So you're actually losing a lot of damage by using mage blood, but I do like the convenience of it. But if you try to make a more budget version, you could just pick up a synthesized belt with flat int and some resist, and you would have still relatively the same defense regarding, like, you would have the evasion rating, which is pretty high with Ghost Shroud, and then you will also have the 75 resist, and of course you're at 100% chaos res, or in reality infinite chaos resist. So now let's go over the gear after we understand how the defense mechanics work. And I do believe that evasion completely changes the build. A lot of people told me that wave 30 simulacrum and Int Stacker just get swarmed and die, but you don't really get swarmed and instantly kill with this much evasion rating. And killing coasters is actually pretty easy, considering that you can face tank almost all his melee attacks, since he actually can't really one-shot you. But for gear, I'm going to make a budget guide for this after I pretty much fleshed out. Today's only my second full day of playing the character. So we have here this wand I bought for like 12-15x, I think. This wand pretty much you can pretty easily make by yourself. You can just Awaken Orb together, spell damage per 60 int, and then 1 to 6 lightning damage to attacks with weapons per 10 int. This is not how the the number 1 wand is made, because the number 1 wand is made through essences with Hunter. But at this point in the league, it's really expensive to buy Reforged Influence or Aug Influence. So this is pretty much the easiest way to make a budget wand. Awaken Orb these two together, and then you can try to Reforge Lightning if you have an open prefix to try to get flat lightning damage. Or if you get a prefix already, you can wipe the suffixes and just multi-mod on crit chance, strength, and int, and then attack speed. So this wand is actually not too crazy of a craft, right? It's just one Awaken Orb on 2 mods that are both prefixes, and then if you get a good prefix, so be it. If you don't, then you just wipe the suffixes and multi-mod and go for it. So here is the Crown of Eyes. I don't really know how useful it is to have the 90% reservation multiplier. I just picked it up because it seemed like a good idea. It cost me like 3-4x this helm. And Power Siphon fires 2 additional projectiles, just helps your single target a little bit more. And this thing is where I run my auras, and because I have the Socketed Gems at 90% cost. If you wanted to go more damage heavy, I think you can go for a +1 power charge helm. And there's also a Scourge for +1 of intelligence gems, which is actually a huge DPS increase. So next we have this amulet here. I am using Vengeance Cascade. I do believe that the single target of Int Stackers is not really that great at the moment for like the super aspirational content. So I do believe Vengeance Cascade shenanigans of Hydra Spear is pretty huge. Now that I think about it, I don't actually think I have Pierce on this to proc Vengeance Cascade. So I'm pretty much trolling actually, because you can't really, because attack projectile return to you from final target. So you actually need some Pierce to do Vengeance Cascade on Power Siphon. So I guess I never really had Vengeance Cascade. Not 100% sure. I feel like I would not have it. So let me know if that's how it works. I do know that Vengeance Cascade is a very strong anoint at the moment. And with Tranquility only being 11% DPS increase, which is the, I don't even know what Tranquility is. What's the Tranquility? But this is the anoint that everyone always uses, which is Tranquility. Oh, Tranquility is the, I know what it is now. It's the energy shield spell damage thing. So it benefits Crown of Eyes. But basically this amulet, you pretty much just want to get percent attributes, percent int, and then the suffix is whatever. So I assume this is another Awakener Orb craft. And then after that, you hopefully you can get percent ES. You could also reforge caster like this person did, or I don't really know what this person did. But reforge caster would guarantee you spell damage, but a lot of different options for this. But the ammo is relatively budget because you can just awaken orbit together. Aziri's Reflection. I actually had a discovery on stream that I actually originally bought Aziri's Mirror. I'm actually an idiot. So Aziri's Mirror, I thought was the same thing. I forgot that Aziri's Reflection existed. So I was like super pumped that I got this nice shield. I don't even know where it is anymore. I probably deleted it because it was so shameful. But basically I was using the wrong shield, and everyone on stream was telling me, why don't you use Aziri's Reflection? I'm like, I thought I had the Aziri's Reflection already, but this is the prophecy version of it. So this one's nice. It gives you a lot of all res, lots of evasion. And then also gives you curse immunity and increased effect of your curses, which is useful for Sniper's Mark and conductivity, which is what we're using. The next we have Call of the Brotherhood percent int. The reason we use Call of the Brotherhood in my case is I'm trying to proc Trinity, and Trinity is a really good gem in terms of damage, and it gives you some pen, so this is why I'm using it. And this just converts your lightning to cold damage, and you can also shock against frozen enemies. It's pretty nice. This was only like 4 or 5x, I think. Now this ring is pretty much crafted with essences on a base of cursed enemies with conductivity on hit. Just 51 in spite essences. Spam some and ended up getting this roll. I think it's probably like 8x or so. Now the reason I have this ring is someone actually gave it to me. I don't really know if this is actually great. Ideally, you would want LE weakness if possible, because of the fact that you want LE weakness because we're actually cold and lightning damage, so this is actually not too useful. So you could also go with a percent int ring, but then you won't be able to get a curse, so you have to find another way to curse. Some people use like Arcanist brand or something or put that Hydra Spear with Awakened Hex Touch, which is another option. So there's a lot of different options for rings. Ideally, most of the people at the high end of PoE Ninja all use like percent int Implicit, which does end up probably being the most damage. Now, Shaper's Touch, I believe, is where the build has changed the most in Scourge. Having the Scourge of Socketed Gems are supported by level 20 added lightning damage has helped out a lot on equalizing the single target between this and your typical KB gloves, which is like socket attacks, multi, faster attacks, faster proj, slower proj with int. So I believe that this gloves is worth it. It solves your accuracy issues, and it most importantly gives you the evasion rating you need. So if you see here, without these gloves, I'm 93% evasion. I'm all the way down to 27,805. So maybe it could be done if you don't have Mage Blood, but I probably would just stick with Shaper's Touch. It's so much evasion, and it seems to be like a huge benefit. I mean, so if you don't have Shaper's Touch, you would be at 9,990 of evasion, and that's literally a huge portion of our survivability, right? So that's why I highly recommend Shaper's Touch, especially at a budget level where you don't have a super crazy pair of gloves. Now for a belt slot, like I said before, you can use a % synthesis belt. It will end up being a lot more damage, but you do need to find ways to fix your resist on your jewels, and you'll need to find ways to make up for dex, because I'm actually short a little bit of dex once I take off the Mage Blood. And next we have this boots. This boot enchant is terrible. You want to get enchant with flat lightning 1 to 160 or pen if you haven't killed recently. And this pair of boots is pretty much, you have to probably buy it unless you want to Awakener Tailwind and Onslaught over and over again until you get Int. So once you get that, you probably have to buy it. So ideally you want elevated Tailwind, elevated Onslaught with T1 or T2 Int or something like that. And then you also want to get Elusive, and then movement speed cannot be chilled. And then you can craft on cannot be frozen, or you can craft on some ES, whatever you want. So this is your typical boots craft. It's quite expensive if you try to get elevated version of this, but I just decided to pick this up because it's relatively cheap. But overall, you might be wondering how much all the gear is. So this is like 15x, 3x, 18, 3, 21, 6, 27, like 5, 32, 8, 40. Gloves was 1, 41. Belt will probably run you around like 8 or so if you use the rare, because the base is just that much. So it's around like a 50, 60x build. Oh yeah, and the chest piece, I forgot about that. And you have this chest piece. I'm using Evasion chest piece because I want to stack Evasion for this build. I do know that Vol Regalia will give me more ES, but I do think that this could be enough ES if you get good enough gear. Now, ideally, you want to just spam Spite Essences until you get % Int and flat Int. And then you can go reinforce defenses with suffixes cannot be changed. Ideally, you don't want the fire res on here. You want to craft on % attributes, but no one really crafts on Sadist Garbs or Evasion ES chest pieces, so that's why I'm stuck with this at the moment. But I will probably be upgrading my chest next. But overall, the build's like 50, 60x minimum, and that's what the cost is, I feel like, for Int Stackers. Like, I know there's like some videos out there saying you can make the Int Stacker for 3 to 4x, but I don't really feel like there's a point in doing that. I would rather farm up more currency to make the experience a little better. I don't feel like it's a super crazy expensive build, and this build can do all the content in the game. Now the main thing is whether you feel like it's worth it. Obviously this character is not going to perform as well as like Lightning Strike or some other build at 60x, or like Cast on or Forbidden Right Self Cast or something like that. But the point of this build is the unlimited potential. So let's go into what we use for the tree. So this is your standard Int Stacker tree. I haven't really changed it up by that much. So for ascendancies, we're Berserker because you get the rage and you get more damage. And then we're also a cultist for the extra curse, and then the regen, and they cannot be stunned, which is super nice. The extra curse is actually a huge deal. So that means we can path out of the witch starting area. I'm taking Wand Slinger right now because when you have like bad gear, you kind of want to prioritize like those on the tree, because later on when we get good gear, I should probably take this note out, bad pathing issues. So that's why we do these videos, so we can fix it. But basically you get the crit multi here, the attribute cluster here, the wand thing here, and this ES nodes are pretty good, +1 max lightning res, and then you get the discipline reservation here. And this Prism Weave cluster is pretty strong. Gives you some pen, some attack speed. Attack speed scales the build really well. So we're running 3 large clusters. We have this large cluster here. Large clusters, you want to look for 35% effect, flat attributes, and then flat int. And then we do the same thing for here, and then also for here. And this one gives us pen with lightning and an increased crit against shocked enemies. And CI, of course. And then we take 1 aura cluster for enough reservation efficiency to cast our auras. I might go down and see if sovereignty is a better option, because I do see some people go down this route. But at this point, we're going down this way. We need the dex anyhow. So the jewels, we're pretty much looking for ES, attack speed, spell damage, and flat int are the best ones. We're using Ghost Shroud and Ghost Reaver for the leech. We get the leech from our Crown of Eyes. But the main tech I switched up was that I'm using 2 of these reservation efficiency jewels with 35% effect to be able to run all my auras. I'm going to go over my gem links after this. But this allows us to run all our auras, which is Spellslinger, Hydra Spear, and Sniper's Mark, Discipline, Wrath, and Grace. So we're able to run a few auras, which helps us out a lot on our defenses. Now, let's see what we have for our gem links. So gem links KB, I'm running Anomalous KB, which gives us the Pierce, GMP, Awaken Wed, and Trinity. And I do think that these are the best links overall. And because of Call of the Brotherhood, we're able to use Trinity. Most people actually use LE Focus. And since we don't use LE Focus and we can shock, we actually don't need to use Skitter bots like so many other builds do. So for our main damage link, I have Anomalous Power Siphon, Barrage, Increased Crit Damage, Trinity, Awaken Added Lightning Damage, and Awaken Elemental Damage with attacks. As you get better gear though, Awaken Added Lightning Damage will lose out to damage on full life because of the fact that you would have more flat lightning to scale off of, and so the more damage multiplier will become better. But however, at this gear level, Awaken Added Lightning Damage is the best in PoB. And for this one here, we have, so I actually run this setup. So you have Hydra Spear, Spellslayer, Sniper's Mark, Enhance. If you don't have the reservation, you don't need to run Enhance. Enhance is super nice because you can get Sniper's Mark additional quality, which ends up being like a 6% more damage. So you can see how here is 40% increased damage taken from hits. With the enhances is 46%. And ideally you want this Hydra Spear to be on a separate link with another Spellslinger setup. So you can also choose, if you want to manually cast Hydra Spear, to use Tempest Shield. Tempest Shield is pretty crazy in terms of helping us smooth out our elemental damage taken. 26% chance to block spell damage is pretty big. And it makes you immune to shock, which is a pretty big survivability. So I could theoretically drop immunity to shock on a Mage Blood Flask that I have. Now for the helm, we're running Enlighten, Grace, Discipline, Wrath, which is what I believe is the best setup for now. And then we have Steel Skin on left click. And then we have Berserk, which we press once we generate the rage. And then we have Divergent Dash, which is our movement skill, and it also grants us phasing whenever we use it. And then for the Flask, you can use Bottle of Faith as the main one. And then you can also try using Wise Oak if you can fix your resist. A lot of people also use Cinder Swallow and Aziri's Promise. So there's a lot of different Flask options, but you can also choose to be more defensive and use Utility Flask instead if you're not using Mage Blood even. But now I'm going to showcase a little bit of footage with it. Just don't laugh. The damage is not the same as the Lightning Strike character, but the fun is the same. It was so fast. Still missing some single time, but gems level 19, no large cluster yet. Yeah, make sure to get quality on your jewels or gems. It makes a pretty big difference. Got the Red Blade. Nice. Red Blade. I actually missed the Red Blade after playing with the Trollbling Sword a lot. So about 2 Maven fails. Check it out. Not 100%.
I've been stuck on memory, but it's not like I need it. And we may have some history, but we don't have to repeat it. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I'm gonna burn all the bridges between us. I can't focus. I can't
Oh yeah, someone wants to buy my shit.
I
Yeah, it's, oh shit. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this like pseudo guide or whatever or overview for my budget version of the Int Stacker. Now I know it has Mage Blood, but you would just use a synth belt instead. I'm just too lazy to buy all the jewels to fix resist. Now, do I think that this character performs well at this budget level? Absolutely not. I think there's builds that perform much better at this budget level. Do I think this character is fun to play at this budget level? Yes, it is very fun to play. And do I think this character can do all content for this budget level? And I do think it can do all content, barring like wave 30 Simulacrum and maybe some hard stuff with Fear. It has the damage to do all the content in the game outside of the crazy aspirational content, and its survivability is not that bad. And it's actually a pleasant surprise that Int Stackers could actually get to wave 30 in Simulacrum. I didn't even think it was possible, but it is possible. And I do think it can even kill wave 30 Simulacrum if you got the right mods. But thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. I will be updating this journey. And next up is going to be Aura Stacker Spark. But it's going to be at least like a few days of this because I really want to try to max out this character. And maybe if the 12-link claw comes out, I'll return to the Lightning Strike character just to give a quick demonstration. I do still have all my gear from my other character though. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Mage Bloods, and Exalts than me, and see you next time. Bye.